Well, I feel I've spoken about this before. Generally, as people, we have ideas, and we really like our ideas, we love our ideas, and we want our ideas. We have ideas about ourselves, and we want to be the idea of ourselves. And we have ideas about, let's say, God. We have ideas about what a relationship should be with the men, with women. We have ideas. And I don't think there's something wrong with the idea, but then there's reality. But so you have your idea. Let's say you're a woman and there's a man, and you have your idea of who you are, who you want to be, who you want people to see, right? But let's focus on what kind of relationship you want. And then you have a guy who he'd like to be, who he wants people to see, and what kind of relationship he wants. And then these people meet. So, do you see where the problem is? We have two people whose ideas may resonate. I tell you a story. I spoke about this girl many times. When I was in my so-called spiritual phase, I was at the peak of my idealism. I think I had never been so insane. I think it also matches with your age. I'm like in my mid-20s, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. In your 20s, you're generally stupid, right? You have, everything is idealized and pushed to extreme and whatnot. So I was in a spiritual group, and then I was having, ideas were coming to my mind, and I was looking at the other people in the spiritual organization and their couples, and I was doing my meditation 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and doing volunteer work in this organization, because I firmly felt this is my mission and this is the supreme truth. And you apply this to your experiences, right? And then of course I feel lonely, I say maybe one day I meet a woman and I can meditate with her from midnight to 6 in the morning, so I'm not alone. And then we can have conversations about God. And then I met this girl, and she was from another country, very far away, and she was in the same, let's not say delirium, but same phase of life as me, and so similar. So she had been in the same spiritual organization, just in a whole other country, and she was working full-time in this organization. So there was a whole romanticism around the organization and working in the organization, and what it meant and what it means for you and who you are because you're there. And of course, then you feel quite lonely because you're isolated from the world, and then you want to maybe one day meet a man, I'm speaking on her behalf, right, with who you can share your life. And you see also elders, that means people who are in the organization longer, who are in couples or married, and so you say, maybe also I want this. And then you have, right? And then boom, there was some American retreat, and we met at the retreat. So what's drawing us together? So there's clearly something at a fundamental level, but what really was drawing us together, the real attraction, was that our two ideas at that moment was in resonance or attraction or a bit of both. Right? And so of course when she saw me, and she, what a sincere, charismatic, young, devotee. And me, I look at her, I say, oh, she's really serious. Yeah. I can really now share my heart with her, and because we understand each other. So then there's some kind of attraction. But is there really? But at that level, at the mind level, at the idea, at the level of my idea and her ideas, the idea of myself and the idea of herself, these ideas had an attraction and a resonance. There's the difference between attraction and resonance, right? Attraction is plus minus. Resonance means they flow in parallel to one another. Yeah, synchronized, if you like. Let's not get into this. So then our attraction came and brought us together. So at first it's lovely because now in your mind, in my mind, right, I'm finding it's check, 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 check. Now I have to dismiss the fact she's blonde. Yeah, I prefer brunettes, as she discovered later, like really blonde, not like blonde, like from Sweden blonde, right? So then, okay. Aside from this, so it's all working, and then she's happy and I'm happy, and you're like, yay, I found finally. So of course, like I said, there was a genuine resonance, and also there was something. It's a complex story. I'm trying to make it simple and get to the point. So at some point, long story short, it also synchronization. It was my time to leave this organization, and it was the same for her. It was arriving at some kind of conclusion, and this conclusion was precipitated by events. It's not important. And through this process, now we're young adults, and she lives far away, and I live in Canada. And now we want to be together, so we have a so-called long-distance relationship, really attached to one another, to the idea mostly, but also now we have something in common, genuinely. We're both changing phases of our lives and both leaving an organization that represented a home for ourselves. And now we're both having to go back into the world. So we have now actually for the first time something that matches, besides our ideas. And then we say, okay, how can we be together, blah, 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 blah. Next thing you know, we found a solution. The solution, we are going to go study yoga in Nepal. So we went there. My goal, I did not care for yoga. I just want to be with her, and it's cheap in Nepal, and we can travel, and right? We could stay months, and then we were going to go to India and whatnot. Do this kind of thing. Some of you will know what I mean. And then we were there full time with one another. Yeah, so this was, I think I've spoken about this before, but it was hell. It was horrible because the deeper reality was emerging in her and in myself, and the idea of ourselves and the idea and the attraction that came from the idea was melting apart. And the process was so painful for myself and for her also. And what was arising in me, it was not able to stop, and I didn't want it to stop, but it was, and also what was, the deeper reality was arising, and the idea didn't match, because now you're spending time with the person. It's not just the idea. And you're not like in this little festival atmosphere where you're just intoxicated and just like in the bliss of nonsense, right? You're in the real world, facing real world challenges such as money, where to live, how to live together, how, like real things. You're not in daddy's world, safe from worldly affairs. So this is catching up. Then the real personality starts to emerge. Me, I'm a very thoughtful individual, question everything. And she's not comfortable with my questions, and I'm like re-questioning my faith, so to speak, and she's very uncomfortable with it because I'm fucking intense. And that I've always been like this, but she had not spent enough time with me to know that I would question everything all the time, because I just don't care about tradition, right? I care about what's practical and what's useful, but then I question things. I'm like, this makes no sense, and this makes no sense, and this doesn't make any sense, and I don't understand this, and why is it like this, and but I read this, and this is what it really means, and now why are people behaving this way? Traditions, right? And then she would start to be very scared of me. Anyways, I digress, and let's fast forward. But this was the height of an idea of myself and meeting a woman who had an idea of herself. So if we somehow would have maintained the idea We would have had some kind of relationship. We did. We enjoyed it for what it was worth. But it was very shallow. Because it's just an idea. But I really held on to this idea of myself. But I was very unhappy because it's here. It's a construct. And so I'm meeting only this of her. So how, if you want to have intimacy, if you want to understand the word intimacy as not just fucking, intimacy as a deep connection. How we have deep connection if this is only where we meet? And if there's anything else that emerges, it's a threat to the relationship, literally, because the relationship is not based on this, it's based on this. So only here it works. This only can meet in certain circumstances. It's not, in our example, it's not in reality, it's in some ashram style life which is so far from reality, in which you have to obey and follow the rules and not ask so many questions and so on. And then my reality is emerging. I'm like, no, I ask questions about everything. I cannot stay here anymore. Right? So I'm becoming a disruptor, even if I'm not. So this is what happens, and it's a clash. So this is trying to hold, but this is the facade is melting and something is deeper wanting to emerge. So it was hell. So this is how this was my extreme version, extreme example of this. When I was much younger, I had my first relationship, serious relationship. It was also same, but I was so immature, so my facade was very basic, and also hers. So what I'm trying to say is that your average people, they have a facade, and it's the facades that meet. And as people get older, their dedication to the facade becomes total. But they cannot help themselves. A deeper reality has to emerge. It's like a volcano. Sooner or later, there's like little fires. And then they try to stop them. No, and I won't do this ever again because I'm a horrible person. I'm so sorry. I'm a horrible person, right? Because I don't know why I snarled at you or I got upset and I told you off. It's not who I am. And then I have to take a course on how to manage anger. And then we have to take therapy on how, so that we can stabilize this here and hopefully maybe make this go a little thicker. Right? But this is the underlying reality of you and of her. So I've said this before, it's like, how do you have a deep connection when the connection is based on just facade? And how does a relationship work really for the well-being of both and all if we're just stuck here? It's impossible. This is my opinion. So here we have the fantasy of the man of my dreams, the woman of my dreams. Do you know why? I just said so. Because you're living here, you're disconnected from yourself. You don't have access to yourself. You don't have access to your power. You don't have access to a greater connection to life that is not in your imagination. You don't have a genuine connection outside of drug substances to the real world around you. I'm not talking about just the trees. No, I'm talking about the whole world with the trees. Society where the world is going, you're totally disconnected. So you don't have access to yourself. You don't have access to your power. Your connections are shallow. You don't feel the real connection with people, with anyone. So you live here. So you feel all alone and isolated. Of course, when you're here, we agree, you have a facade and you're never really able to live up to your own ideals. Do I agree? So you're always suffering because you're never good enough, you're never going to be the perfect version of yourself enough, etc., etc. But the point is, here, you're isolated. There's no you, there's no life. There's just where you are and what you wish you were. And the same for the other person. So in this place of loneliness and isolation, it's only normal that you aspire to find love in the one, because you feel all alone. You are. And you're looking for somebody who will look at you and see you and recognize all the things that you tell yourself that you are. To validate you, it's like, yes, you're such a spiritual person. Yes, you're such a profound, deep individual, because nobody really knows you or cares about you. You live here. Everybody lives here and they feel isolated. So and of course they idealize themselves and wish what they could. I wish I could be like this, but nobody can see it. So then you find the one of your dreams who sees you and says, yes, I see you. Literally. And you're like, yes, finally somebody sees me. And I am no longer on my own. Finally, I will have somebody with me who loves me, who appreciates me, who understands me. So in my humble opinion, this is where this stems from. You're looking for food. And then the obsession grows and becomes more big as the facade tightens and becomes more crystallized, and you have less and less access to what's underneath. And remember, every time there's a flare-up, it creates problems in your life. People expect this from you, and then there's a flare-up, so then you get in trouble, so then you have to find ways to like keep it low, keep the fire low, and then it crystallizes more, which means you're even less, you have less vitality, less connection. I've lived this, so it was one of the hardest times of my life. This is not has nothing to do with the woman per se. It's me, how far I was from myself. And imagine I was spiritual. I had never in my life been as far from myself than at that point. I was in so much pain. And she was in the same, so it was even harder to look at her. And I'm not stupid, obviously, right? So you see, it's like you project shit on one another, and then you see you're totally helpless. You cannot really assist her or help her because she also holds on to an ideal. And in fact, the whole relationship is based on the ideal of one another and of me, of us, of her and us, right? It's just, right? So as it's falling apart, there's what are you going to do? And now, when I look back, I think of this, I'm like, look, I just said it's the hardest time of my life, not because of I'm a bad person, because I was so far away trying to be something I'm not. And it took me quite some time to find my way back to myself and go beyond what I knew. And of course, who I am today, and she knew that because, you know, it's easy to project. She knew that. She's like, no, I know what you are. You're a monster. I know you like women and you're like this and you're like this. And I was like, what are you talking about? I look at the floor. I don't even look at people. There's only you in my mind, what you're saying. And right? One time we were like in Nepal and we were walking to this restaurant. It was called Om something. It was a little further than where we were living in this area, and we walked, and we would walk all the time together. And at some point, as we arrived at the restaurant, her mood changed. I'm like, what's going on now? More problem, right? And I said, what's wrong? You know, this horrible life, man. What's wrong? She's like, nothing. I'm like, no, I know you stopped with this. Let's get on with our fight. And it's fourth fight of the day. Let's just get on with it. And she said, I know you. I'm like, what did I do now? I said, I know you. I'm like, what? I know the kind of women you're attracted to. I'm like, I said, I don't know what you're talking about. Because also, she's insane. But I'm also... And then she pointed to a billboard. I'll never forget this. And there was on the billboard, you know, in India and Nepal, they worship... pale-looking Indians, Nepali people. They're like almost white, but with Indian traits. So they kind of like look a little Middle Eastern, but with a little more Asiatic flavor. She said, this is the kind of girl you're attracted to. I said, I didn't even see this billboard to even be attracted to it. No, I know you. This is what you really like, and you're not attracted to a person like myself. And I was like, what I'm going to do with you? And then, and the same as she's saying this, I'm like, but you're right. So anyways, I again digressed, but I think it's a good story. The point of what I'm trying to say is, what is in me and what was in hers is not matching. Zero. There's not one thing that matches. Period. In the facades and in the characters we were both playing, at a moment there was a match, but nothing else. There's no other, like, if I would see her today, no, I wouldn't give you the time of day, and neither would she, because there's no interest. I'm like, it's not for me. This is not. It's like there's a repelling. There's nothing that matches. There's no interest. You know what I mean? I think this right. But imagine. So I got to know her, and I know who I am today. I'm like, no, but this. How the hell did you even imagine this? You're insane. That's what I'm trying to say. But from that level, there was such a connection. And fortunately for me, the facade didn't hold for so long, because I have teachers that just helped me to clean it out. But it came all from there. And this so-called man of my dreams or woman of my dreams, I'm telling you, stemmed from the very fact that I was separated from myself, my own power, my connection to life, my connection to others. It's not if you have a connection to yourself that you cannot be in connection to others. I did not say this. I'm not at all saying. I said the concept, the dream of finding the so-called one, comes that obsession. Well, who is the one you're looking for? So now it's going to sound cliche, but it's you. Now, who is you is another subject, but it's like you're looking for yourself, but you're looking for yourself in another person, hoping that she'll see you, and she won't, because you're playing a game. But that obsession comes from the fact that you don't have this link with yourself, you don't taste yourself, you don't feel yourself, or your relation to yourself is very shallow or very small. So you need to compensate, because you feel literally you are isolated. So now why should I be alone in my little bubble? I want a person I can share everything with. Share everything with? What madness. I remember I was obsessed with this, and I had like rules of what a relationship should be. And my rule was we were going to say the truth to each other always. So I started going ahead and telling her. And then she'd look at me, she says, why you told me this? She says, it's very important. I tell you everything in my mind. All my feelings. You see her, I've thought this. And you see this, and I did with her and this, and then she got very upset. She says, I don't want to know. I'm like, what do you mean you don't want to know? We're supposed to be one. And I felt that if I didn't do this, systematically confess, I was cheating. So I was confessing to her all my sins. Anyways, all kinds of crazy things. I learned a lot from this. I learned really the madness of the mind and what it does, and how it protects you from yourself. Now I know what happened. This story is like 2002, 3, 4, something like this. And I know what happened 20 years after, right? Who I am today. I saw what journey I had to go through. So I understand what was happening in me. My system was trying to protect me from my intensity and everything that would rise from my awakening. Because my life is so far from this, I don't think any person who would see me from that time would recognize me. Who I am, how I speak, everything about me is so opposite to what I was trying to pretend I am. Like opposite. She would probably say, yes, I knew this. This is why I said you're a monster. It doesn't matter. But do you see? So anyways, I hope I answer this subject about the so-called one. And again, I want to insist on this. If you have a relationship with yourself, you will have a relationship with others. Women or men or opposite sex. But why must it always be the one? It's a sickness. Now, I'm not telling you to force yourself not to think this way. You do. I'm telling you because I've gone through this, I've gone to the other side, and I've healed my problem. I've said, I'm telling you, this is coming from because you're missing something. And you're trying to compensate, and you don't realize to which extent you are. And both these people are using each other, not necessarily in a mean way, to try to provide something for one another that they cannot find for themselves, and that they are unable to provide for one another also. So it's a whole lie. She loves me. She hated me. She didn't love me at all. She couldn't stand me. She detested me. She detested everything about me. I'm talking about not at the surface. At the surface, she adored me for a month. The idea of myself. But as a woman, who I was as a man, she hated everything about me. You're not a man, you're not strong, you're not confident, you have no direction, you don't know where you're going, you don't know what you are, you don't live in integrity with your real self, you're fake, you're this, like she detested me. So I was receiving this detestation on a systematic basis, which was hidden under the veneer of we're together and we walk and hold hands and this bullshit. But at the womb level, she despised me. And me also, I despised her. I couldn't stand her. I found her hideous. I'm like, I don't like blonde girls. Leave me alone. It's a joke about the blonde girl, really, but not really. It's I cannot stand you. I don't like how you think. I don't like you're like cramping my style. Get the fuck off of me. You're insane. I hope this covers this. Thank you.